the train station didn't even exist.
Coming forward now.
Money.
You think it's all about money?
Well, it's all about money.
It's always been about money. I hate to say it when it's my uncle, it's almost like they see a blank check, and because they've been taken care of their whole life. And
the man, his late 30s, well, let me finish. That a man in his late 30s, early 40s would share a bed at Neverland with young boys. So, do you understand why people look at it and go...
Wait. Pierce, let me interject. Those were slumber parties, and what they didn't tell you was there were little girls there, even with their parents, their uncles, and they were sitting down watching movies. During the time, I believe he was instructed by one of his legal team to do that. And that's why everybody's coming forth now. But I will say this, even when that settlement happened, the father killed himself because of guilt. And then the kid said, Michael never touched him. But he got tired of them dragging him through the mud and this and that. So that's what's going on now.
I can
but
imagine.
The father killed himself because of guilt.
Officially throwing his case.
When Gavin was there, he talked about the fact that he shares your bedroom.
Yes.
Can you understand why people would worry about that?
Because they're ignorant.
But is it really appropriate for a 44-year-old man to share a bedroom with a child who is not related to him at all?
That's a beautiful thing.
That's not a worrying thing?
Why should they be worrying? Who's the criminal? Who's Jack the Ripper in the room? This is a guy trying to help heal a child. I'm sleeping in a sleeping bag on the floor. I gave him the bed because he has a brother named Star. So him and Star took the bed, and I'm on the floor in the...
Strange that a man in his late 30s, well, let me finish, that a man in his late 30s, early 40s would share a bed at Neverland with young boys. So, do you understand why people look at it and go...
Wait. Pierce, let me interject. Those were slumber parties, and what they didn't tell you was there were little girls there, even with their parents, their uncles, and they were sitting down watching.
So you just heard lie number one. Now let's find out the truth. So the question was that did Michael Jackson, essentially when a child would share his bedroom, did he really basically sleep on the floor and he and the child will take the bed? Or was it always basically just slumber parties where the parents were there, as we heard from Jermaine Jackson? Well, it's not that difficult to find if you just look at one child that Michael Jackson spent a whole time with. His name is Brett Barnes. In the 2005 trial, he was asked about the sleeping arrangements, and he openly admitted to sharing a bed with Michael Jackson all the time. He even said he shared a bed with Michael Jackson all the way up to he was 19 years old. The other thing that's really telling is they basically figured out that he spent over 300 consecutive nights with Michael Jackson in his bedroom, in his bed, during like a 1.5 year time window. So, guys, if anyone asks you or tells you, well, wait a second, you have that all wrong, he didn't share a bed with children, or if he did, it was very rare, or there was always slumber parties, all you have to do is show them this fact. You can even stop this video while I was speaking, and you'll see actually running down the testimony of that trial.
Coming forward now.
Money.
You think it's all about money?
Well, it's all about money.
It's always been about money. I hate to say it when it's my uncle, it's almost like they see a blank check, and because they've been taken care of their whole life, and
suing them for hundreds of millions of dollars.
So now let's look at the truth. This particular piece of MJ machine propaganda has been around for a very, very long time. It actually goes back all the way to 1993, and even in 2025, it's there rearing its ugly head. They always push out this point, it's all about money. And when it comes to the Wade Robson and James Safechuck suits, people have talked, oh, they're suing for $1 billion. You saw in that last clip how they were saying, oh, they're suing for hundreds of millions of dollars. The problem is that you can't sue for any amount. So when you go into a civil arena and you actually say, hey, someone has caused me damage, what happens is if you go to a civil trial and there's a judgment in your favor, it's actually the jury that decides what your compensation and what your damages are going to be. In some cases, they might feel that your damages are minimal. The other thing I want to bring up here is that this particular case has been going on for 12 years, pretty much 12 years. If you look at Wade Robson's life and you look at James Safechuck's life, if you look at what they made in an average year, say it's $150,000, times that by 12, that is literally the amount of time, aggravation, everything that you have to do to get a civil trial moving. So it's absolutely ridiculous when I hear this argument about, oh, this is always about money. You know, if you look at the Gavin Arvizo case, by the way, Gavin Arvizo, his family, from the get-go said, we don't want the devil's money, and they never have taken a dime after that criminal trial. They've never taken a dime, and they've been offered money to tell their stories, to go on camera. Gavin Arvizo, to this day, gets lots of lucrative offers to tell his story, and he won't do it. So, again, you're going to hear this particular argument. It's a big one. You'll hear it over and over again. It's all about money. But the one thing that they also don't tell you is the estate's now worth over $2 billion. And because of the silence of these victims and because they took so long to come forward, the estate was able to rehabilitate Michael Jackson's image. So it took it from a negative $250 million when they first actually took over from when Michael Jackson passed away. It's now up to $2 billion, and you have a brand new movie that's coming out this fall that's probably going to make them even more money. And from what I can gather, it looks like they're trying to make as much money as they possibly can before the civil trial hits in 2026. So when you hear that argument, all you really need to say is, well, you know, you're saying it's all about money, but isn't the estate the one that has the $2 billion, and it was built off the backs of victims? Lie number 3. Wade Robson once begged to be included in Michael Jackson's Cirque du Soleil. And because he was turned down, he decided at that point in time that he wanted to sue the Michael Jackson estate. And now for the truth. Wade Robson actually got hired by Cirque du Soleil, and early on in the project he got another offer to direct a movie, so he decided to step away from Cirque du Soleil and decided to become a director. Unfortunately, the project was too stressful. Wade Robson actually had a nervous breakdown, partly because he was dealing with the trauma that he was finally beginning to come to terms with at the hands of Michael Jackson. So he left that directing project and asked to see if he could come back to Cirque du Soleil. Now the myth is that because Cirque du Soleil turned him down, that he got incredibly angry with the estate and decided to sue the MJ estate. The problem with that myth, or that theory, is the estate had nothing to do with the hiring or firing for that project. It was all Cirque du Soleil. So if he was going to be angry with anybody, it would be Cirque du Soleil, not the MJ estate.
Michael's not here to defend himself. 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 Michael's not here to defend himself.
So now the truth. Michael Jackson never defended himself. He actually had lawyers do that for him. You know, when the Chandler settlement happened, it was one day before he was going to have to give a sworn deposition. They did not want him to do that because he was going to have to explain away all the times he spent with Jordan Chandler alone, and the description on his genitalia, and all the other things that he probably couldn't just talk himself out of. But you know what? There was one time that Michael Jackson actually answered questions from a lawyer. We're going to be looking at that right now, and you tell me what a great job he did defending himself.
She can't stop. She can't stop her from making There's nothing you can do.
Some chamomile tea over there, that might settle it down. Of course, problem is it might put you to sleep. You're welcome. Mr. Jackson, in the latter portion of 1993, there were some allegations leveled at you concerning improper conduct with some young boys. I assume you're familiar with the fact that those allegations were raised. Is that right?
Yes.
In fact, are you familiar with a person named Jordy Chandler?
We're not going there. Don't answer. We're not going to get into who he knows and doesn't know. If you want to ask a question, go ahead and ask it. But I believe it's beyond the scope of discoverable matters in the case.
Whether he knows of Jordy Chandler?
Right. Yeah, let me
Isn't there a quote that comes to mind of what's good for the goose is good for the gander?
Oh, come on, Count. What?
Do soft fave.
Let me just make sure my understanding is clear. Is it your position that you will instruct Mr. Jackson not to answer any questions that pertain to the issue of Jordy Chandler in any way, whether it be claims leveled by Jordy Chandler, if any, or discovery in the Jordy Chandler case vis-a-vis Adrian McManus's deposition and allegations that she testified falsely? Any of that you're not going to let him go into?
That's right. I believe that's correct. With respect to the motivations that are, in your view, germane to the allegations made in the complaint, my client has testified that he knows nothing about those matters that you want to explore his motivations on. So therefore, there's a lack of foundation. But let's just go do what you want to do.
You've raised something that sort of catches me by surprise. You say your client has testified that he knows nothing about these matters. Is this at today's deposition you're referring to, or some other deposition that I was not present at?
Today.
That is strange, since I have not asked about that issue until just now. I have not asked about the allegations specifically. I have asked about investigation. Were you aware that Jordan Chandler or his family on his behalf filed a lawsuit against you?
Yes.
Okay. Were you aware that at some point in time in that lawsuit, Adrian McManus gave her deposition?
I'm not positive.
Your answer confuses me. How do you mean you're not positive? You don't know whether she gave her deposition or not?
Exactly.
So then, if I understand it correctly, you are not going to allow me to go into any areas in connection with Brett Barnes. Is that right?
Well, you can ask. There's nothing I can think of, but if you... I'm not going to categorically say you can't ask anything about him, but I don't think there's anything relevant. So irrelevant that I'm not inclined to let you get into it unless there's an area that you believe is directly tied to the case.
Well, I believe it, but I have a feeling that my believing is not going to convince you of much. To your knowledge, Mr. Jackson, were you ever accused of having sexually molested Brett Barnes?
Won't answer that.
Do you know a person by the name of Macaulay Culkin?
Yeah. No. Get your answer.
So you're going to let him answer questions about Macaulay Culkin?
Let him answer that one.
To your knowledge, were you ever accused of having sexually molested Macaulay?
That's an instruction not to answer on that one.
They didn't tell you was there were little girls there. They didn't tell you was there were little girls there. They didn't tell you was there were little girls there. They didn't tell you was there were little girls there.
And now for the truth. Prepare yourself.
Her 3 decades ago, and Eyewitness News reporter Marco Robles is here live with more. Mark?
Well, the attorneys representing this newest alleged victim say this case is similar to previous child sex abuse lawsuits against Michael Jackson and his production companies, but it's also much different. They say that this involves the first female victim coming forward to seek justice. They also say there's proof that their client was paid to keep quiet. A new lawsuit filed today against Michael Jackson's production companies paints a detailed picture of child sex abuse allegations involving the late king of pop. His alleged victim, a 12-year-old girl he met in 1986, described by her attorney as a tomboy.
She kind of looked like a boy, so we don't know if he initially thought that she was a boy or not.
Attorney Vince Finaldi says the alleged abuse ended when his client turned 15. Now in her early 40s, he says she's producing evidence from the so-called grooming stage of the alleged abuse, including letters she claims were written by Jackson. "You're making me love you even more the more I talk to you. I'm crazy about you." And proof that Jackson and his production companies paid the alleged victim in excess of $900,000 as compensation.
That's when we knew that she was actually telling the truth, that she had something real and concrete that was incontrovertible, because not only were the payments made by Michael Jackson himself, they were made by his business managers and they were made by his companies. And they came right from his bank accounts, and we've got it right there in black and white.
But why file now? The lawsuit claims Jackson had made threats before, during, and after the alleged abuse, telling the accuser she would be physically harmed if she ever told anyone, and that she would get in trouble with law enforcement and go to jail. Finaldi says Jane Doe now needs therapy, suffering from psychological, mental, and emotional distress. There's no dollar amount for how much she's seeking. Finaldi says his client is demanding a jury trial to decide the value of her life sentence.
They never forget it, it never goes away, and it's always problematic.
And what people don't realize is that this started at a very, very young age from Michael Jackson. It started when he was 17.
He forgives me for telling this story. Okay, Tatum, please forgive me. I remember her telling me to come over to the house, to her house. They have a Beverly Hills house too. And what she's going to do to me when I come. You know, all the...
Well, what did she say?
All the sexual stuff. So I'm scared to death.
So she rings you and says, Michael, come to my house. I'm going to make love to you.
Yeah.
And you're really scared?
I'm scared. Scared because I've never done anything like that. I came over there trying to be Mr. Big Shot and brave. I remember she cut off all the lights in her bedroom, opened the curtains. You can see the whole skyline of the city over the cliff. It was beautiful. And she told me to go over and lie on the bed, and I did. I laid on the bed. And she slowly walked over, and she touched the button of my shirt to open it, and I took my hands like this, and I wouldn't let him down. And she just walked away. She knew I was too shy for it. That's what happened.
Did you not feel tempted at all? You just felt frightened?
I was frightened. I was afraid. I didn't think I was ready for that.
What we just watched in that video was a recollection from Michael Jackson, and he was being interviewed by Martin Bashir. What he was recalling was a situation where he was invited over to his girlfriend's house, and she invited him into her bedroom on her bed and then tried to, according to Michael Jackson, undress him. And Michael Jackson recoiled and said, "Oh, no, I'm not ready for this." What doesn't get asked, though, in that interview, which really should have, was how old was Tatum O'Neal, who he's referring to? She was a young actress at the time. And how old was Michael Jackson? Well, Michael Jackson was 17, and Tatum O'Neal was 12. The reason this particular piece of this interview is so important is because it shows his mindset. What we're seeing is a man that's now in his 40s discussing how a 12-year-old invited him over. A 12-year-old tried to seduce him and unbutton his shirt, and he was the innocent one. It was the 12-year-old's idea to engage in this sort of activity. Now, according to Tatum O'Neal, she has a totally different recollection of these events. She stated that Michael Jackson has a vivid imagination, but she also states in her autobiography, A Paper Life, something even more disturbing, which we will look at right now. This is a book from Tatum O'Neal. It's called A Paper Life, and in this book, she discusses in one of her chapters her relationship with Michael Jackson and the particular recollection that Michael Jackson just conveyed to Martin Bashir. Let's take a look at what she had to say in regards to that. Okay, so let's take a look at an excerpt from Tatum O'Neal's book, A Paper Life, in which she describes her relationship with Michael Jackson when she was 12. And as we saw in the last video, Michael Jackson described her inviting him over at 12 and trying to seduce him. So she writes in her book, "He gave me his number and we started talking every day. Long, drawn-out conversations that sometimes got so boring, I would have to handle the receiver to my friend, Esme Gray. Mike would just keep on thinking he was talking to me. His usual subject was sex. At 12, I didn't have much to say about sex. All I knew was that it went on pretty steadily in my father's room next to mine. But Michael was intensely curious about anything perspective." This is Tatum O'Neal at 12 years old. I really want you to take a long, hard look at this picture. This is Tatum O'Neal at 12. Why is this important? A lot of people ask, well, Tatum O'Neal wasn't sexually abused by Michael Jackson, so why is this even part of the story? It's a very important part of the story because it shows Michael Jackson's mindset as a very right on the cusp of adulthood, 17, 18, where he is going backwards and looking to date a 12-year-old. He sees a Tatum O'Neal and says, well, that would be somebody I would like to date. Whereas in 17, 18, if you think back, most juniors or seniors in high school, because that's around the age group, don't want to be seen with an underclassman, don't want to be seen with somebody who's 12. They're usually babysitting 12-year-olds. They don't want to be dating them. But Michael Jackson, in his mind, thought, well, gee, this is a suitable person for me to date. That is a huge red flag for anybody that understands the topic of grooming, child sexual abuse, etc. The other important thing is how Michael Jackson, like I said before, described this in the Martin Bashir interview, which Tatum O'Neal actually denied his description. But the way he described it was the 12-year-old was being the aggressor, and at 17, he was the innocent one. She was the one that invited him over. She was the one that had him lie on the bed. She was the one that started unbuttoning his shirt. And he was just this innocent child that was being, in some ways, the way he was describing it, being taken advantage of. That is not normal behavior.
In 1979, approaching the age of 21, Michael Jackson was interviewed by Blues and Soul magazine. Michael Jackson was discussing his trip to India when he made this peculiar statement. That's what I dig so much about traveling. You can see the systems that other countries adopt, and you come to realize that America is not always right. We say we're right, they say they're right. You really don't get a clear picture until you leave the United States. You realize that there are other cultures than your own, and it makes you feel small and insignificant. Like in India, I was amazed to find out a 30-year-old man could marry a 10-year-old girl. We weren't raised that way, so we look at it weirdly, but there it's been happening for centuries, and the parents are quite willing to give up their child. Michael Jackson always stated that he saw the face of God when looking at children. He also stated that he would rather slit his wrists than to harm a child. What is baffling is his lack of understanding that a child of 10 should never be able to marry a 30-year-old man. Not because, as he put it, is weird, but because it takes the one thing away that he always said he missed out on, and that is a childhood. It also, without a doubt, is abuse, no matter what culture one is discussing. So to put this in context, in another interview also given in August 1979 in Soul magazine, Michael, when asked, "What does coming of age, being a man, your 21st birthday mean?" To tell you the truth, for me, manhood doesn't come at an age. Manhood, I know, I'm not even going to say think is mental. There's some 5-year-old men, there's some 8-year-old men, there's some 30-year-old children. I don't know what's the point of manhood. And there you have it. From what I can gather by that statement is that Michael Jackson was free to be a child forever, and a child could choose to be a man at 5, a child that can make decisions well beyond their years. Michael Jackson stated many times, according to his accusers, that it was them teaching him, and it was their idea to engage in sexual relations. Maybe this was his warped rationale.
People need to get it out there, but if you have the opportunity to tell the truth, tell the truth.
You mean even now, or even
Yes,
ready?
yeah.
People are not ready to tell the truth.
I understand, but don't wait until the family starts suing.
No. Do you believe him?
Well, he's
I do not.
You know,
I do not.
Michael's not here to defend himself. That's the thing.
So I'm going to go with the dead guy.
Many people believe that it should be easy to tell the truth when you were a victim of child rape, that you should be able to do that as soon as it happens, or maybe when you get a little bit older. I'm going to show you a very, very sad story that somewhat correlates to what we're looking at here. It's about a child that was abused in Boy Scouts. Take a listen. So the next question we have to answer is, what happened to Wade Knox after the abuse? So let's find out.
It was in the months after the Stocks family murders that Jack's abuse of the boys of Lone Oak started to come out.
Wade's senior year, he fell completely apart. I mean, he absolutely fell completely apart. I saw pain, a lot of pain in Wade's eyes, a lot of pain. But when you don't know what you're fighting, you don't know how to handle it.
For years, Karen had wondered why her son Wade was so troubled.
It was just constant turmoil till I did not know what was going on. I knew there was so much evil somewhere, but I could not figure out where it was coming from.
She finally found out just before he started his senior year of high school.
He took a gun out of our safe and brought Jack to us at gunpoint. He still had the gun to what Jack's had, and he said, "Now you tell my mom and my dad what you've done to me all of my life." And Jack said, "It's all true." I looked at that man, and Josh, I didn't even know him. He looked like evil. He was sweating profusely. He didn't even look human to me anymore.
That was the day Karen found out Jack Walls had been abusing her son.
You know, when you find out what's been wrong with your child for the last 13 years in one split second, that's pretty powerful. After it was all over with, he said, y'all were supposed to die that day. And he said, I couldn't do it. He was supposed to kill all of us because we were putting things together.
Later, Wade would tell his mother details of what Jack Walls had put him through over the years.
He looked at me one day and he was so serious and he was so hurt. He said, did you and Daddy give Jack permission to rape me and perform all that stuff on me? And I said, oh my God, no. No. He said, Jack said you knew all about it and it was fine with y'all.
And what happened to Wade?
My daughter had a baby, and it was my spring break. It was in March. And she wanted us to come up and keep the baby one day for her. So we did. And Wade said, don't worry about it. He was good then. And he said, don't worry about me. I will be okay. Well, Brooke, our oldest son, was supposed to check in with him, which he did. And his Charlie's mother was supposed to check in with him, which she did. But one afternoon, Brooke called us and said, Mama, Wade's dead. He shot himself. Right before he died, he said, Mom, we have got to make something good come out of this. He said, we've got to write a book, we've got to go to the schools and tell them about people like Jack. And he never lived to do it.
And also a big piece for me was Michael trained me and forced me to tell the lie for so many years, and particularly on the stand. And those were really traumatizing experiences for me that had a huge impact on the rest of my life. So the feeling was, I want an opportunity to reprocess that experience. I want to get on the stand again, because now I'm able to tell the truth.
Lie number 7, Michael Jackson really did not have enablers and people trying to find children for him. Let's take a look at this video. You might actually be somewhat shocked.
We will be meticulously going over this video and asking all the important questions. Who brought this child to Mr. Jackson? Who are the handlers or partners behind the scenes? Where did this child go with Michael Jackson? We may not have all the answers, but we do know we must ask questions. In this episode, we will also be looking at other obscure facts, allegations, and concerning behavior from the man known as the King of Pop. So as always, we hope you will spend some time with MJ victims tonight as we ask, who is this child? And as we watch the handoff, so let's begin. The man with the blonde hair and slate blue shirt is Michael Jackson's friend and acts as his interpreter. He will become rather important at the end of this video. As I am sure you can see, it is quite a chaotic scene while fans and others await the arrival of Michael Jackson. As we are waiting for Michael Jackson's exit from his limousine, pay close attention to the young man dressed in all black with the backpack. Here he is 2 days prior with Michael Jackson. His name is Frank Cassio. He is Mr. Jackson's personal assistant and was once one of Mr. Jackson's child friends. Michael Jackson arrives and 2 special friends are waiting. If you look closely, you will see 2 boys, one in shorts and the other with dark hair wearing camouflage pants. The boy in the camouflage pants is the child whom we are concerned with in this episode. Michael Jackson surveys the crowd and again pay close attention because Mr. Jackson will quickly throw up 2 fingers as almost to signal what looks like a staged event. And there she comes almost like on cue. The man with the blonde hair and slate shirt is seen again. Michael Jackson seems to show no interest in the beautiful young woman that tried to get his attention. Instead, Mr. Jackson's interests are in the handmade posters and gifts being presented by the fans. His eager friend is more than pleased to run into the crowd and retrieve Michael Jackson's fan-made gifts. As stated previously, pay close attention to his eager little friend in the slate blue shirt, because he will be of much importance later in this video. How could any child make sense of all this mayhem and confusion? Another female fan, but again of very little importance to the king of pop. But something, or should I say someone, finally gets Michael Jackson's undivided attention. The boy in the camouflage pants returns, with a young man dressed in black pulling him by the arm, to Michael Jackson. Two other boys are behind him, but get scurried off rather quickly. Michael Jackson gives a nod and the boy follows. It looks like Michael Jackson may have met this boy before, as the child tries to make conversation. They go into the hotel and leave one chaotic situation outside, for another one inside. One would have to question, where is this boy's parents? Again, more confusion. And where is the boy he came into the hotel with? Michael Jackson makes pleasantries with his colleagues and waves to the fans looking over the balcony. This is a fairly hectic scene. One would think such a small child would be well taken care of. This, however, does not seem to be the case, as Michael Jackson smoozes what looks to be his business partner. And yet again, Michael Jackson's eager little friend comes into frame. The entourage now heads for the elevator. The boy is nowhere in sight. But wait, there he is, and who is pushing him into the elevator? Guessed it. It is the eager little man in the beginning of this video. The boy, however, looks lost, confused and bewildered. There are so many questions that need to be looked into further, such as if this was a child of one of his workers or business partners. Why was he dragged through the crowd? Why didn't he just meet Mr. Jackson when things were less chaotic? The other question is, was that indeed Frank Cascio who grabbed this unknown boy by the arm and brought him to Michael Jackson? The only reason I ask this question is because in the investigation into the 2003 allegations, Frank Cascio was listed as an unindicted co-conspirator. It was reported that the mother of the boy who accused Mr. Jackson of child abuse stated Frank Cascio told her that her family's life was in danger and that they would be safer behind Neverland's walls. Was Mr. Cascio knowingly or unknowingly bringing prey to slaughter? In regards to this video, the more pressing issue is, where did this boy end up after being pushed into the elevator? So let's see if we can get an answer to that question. Sometimes open windows can show a glimpse into a world that some would rather keep hidden. A world in which secrets are kept and lies are put forward. And there it is. Michael Jackson in his room with the child who for now is unknown. Make of that what you will.
And one last note here before we sort of wrap up. I recently got contacted and somebody was asking me, well, why have I done this page, and it's been now almost 12 years. Why have I stuck with it so long, and why is this such a passion? I'm going to tell you just a very, very quick little story. I usually don't get too involved, but I will tell you the story. When I first started this page in 2013, Wade Robson's story, it resonated. I knew when he came out, I knew this is going to be a very uphill battle. So I put the page up and, did a whole bunch of things, and it was very therapeutic. But in a year later, I found myself getting just really a lot of anxiety and things going on. And I realized that I was dealing with, even though I knew I had gone through some abuse myself, I never really kind of dealt with it that well. So I thought it might be a good idea to actually go to my family. At the time, it was my parents. And I decided to tell them. And unfortunately, the answer was, well, unfortunately, we don't believe you. And that wasn't the easiest thing to hear. But that's what I was told. I was told, I was even told that even if the person came forward and admitted they had done this to me, I still wasn't going to be believed. Must have been something done to convince them to tell this story. Well, that was about 2014. 4 years later, unfortunately, my mother was on her deathbed, and I had just made a big move, and I didn't have a whole lot of resources, but I had to fly back. And when I got into the hospital room, there was kind of like some chairs set up, and we all kind of knew it was really, she didn't have a whole lot of time. So I walked into the room, and then unfortunately the person who had abused me was sitting in a chair, and I had to sit right next to him. And I knew at that point that my mother had now seen us both together, and that even though we were both together, that she didn't believe me, but she believed, and he didn't even really say anything, but anyways, she didn't really believe me, but she needed him there, I guess. So I was kind of, we were there and doing our own little sort of thing, and I needed to actually go out and, God, can't believe this, getting a little flustered here. I had to go and spend some time with this person because we had to get some things done that I knew needed to be done, and I knew, unfortunately, I could not bring up what had happened. When I had originally had sort of a little bit of a breakdown, I had called and demanded to speak to this person, and the person never answered. And this was the first time I was actually with this person alone. So I had to make a decision. Well, I need to keep my mouth shut. I'm not here for that. So unfortunately, my mom got worse and worse and worse. And I had to make a decision because it was really not a good time, and I wasn't in a good place. So they said, well, she might be okay, and I left. And unfortunately, I want to say about, 3 days later, she passed away. And the most difficult point was that I knew that she had gone and she didn't believe anything I said, which was not easy. But let me go a little further here. So that was a little bit of a difficult thing. And so when I came back, I started working on the page and the videos and all that sort of stuff. And I decided that I really need to follow this through, because the reality is that not everyone makes it through. And I don't mean that in like a cryptic sort of way, but not everyone's believed. And not everyone really gets to have that validation, I should say. But Wade and James hopefully will. And hopefully in the year 2026, they will be heard by a jury of their peers, and they will be believed. And for everyone that talks about Wade's parents or James' parents, let me tell you one thing. The one thing that they did that unfortunately I didn't have, they were believed. So this is why I'm doing all this fun stuff here. And let's get to I want to thank you again for joining us here in the, excuse me. So I want to thank you for being here for before Leaving Neverland 2 and after Leaving Neverland 2. We're going to be doing an after Leaving Neverland at, so I guess goes off at 9 p.m. So at 9:15, we'll be showing the next episode of Nocturnal Admissions. It's titled Selective, and it goes over the various children that Michael Jackson tended to gravitate towards. And as always, I appreciate your support, and I know that the cause is so important. And I'm sorry I got a little emotional in this last sort of talk here. I thought I left that in the past, to be perfectly honest. But anyways, I want to thank you, and I look forward to seeing you on the other side at 9:15 when we show our next episode. And please like, share, subscribe. And as always, please get involved, because if you don't get involved, people aren't going to know about this story and how important it is. And see you at 9:15.